Hello, everyone. Welcome to another amazing episode of AWS Sheba's Tech Skills. I'm Jigna. I'm a solution architect from AWS. And if this is your first time listening, this show is all about amplifying the voices of women in technology, sharing their journeys and their insights and their advice. I'm here with my wonderful co host, Tsega, who has recently joined our Sheba's team. Tsega, do you mind giving a quick introduction and what excited you to join here?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Jigna, for having me. My name is Tefera. I'm a solutions architect at AWS, working with financial services. What inspired me to join She Builds was the different women that I have internally that I look up to that are mentors. And also, I wasn't really limited to the people internally. With She Builds, I was able to experience different customers and different people, different women that are excelling at their job. So it was an exciting opportunity that I'm grateful to be a part of.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with us. So for our audience, today's topic is going to be really interesting because, as we look at especially the financial technology landscape, we are seeing some fascinating developments that are reshaping how financial services customers reach previously underserved populations. You can say that the growth of machine learning, alternative data sources, and cloud native technologies is enabling companies to make faster and more accurate decisions for the people who have been, you can say, historically excluded from traditional banking systems. Sega, anything you want to add?
Yeah, no, I agree with what you said. So the innovation that we have right now is fueled by modern cloud infrastructure and also DevOps best practices, which is giving it an opportunity to develop machine learning models faster than ever. And what this does is it will give it the technology ability to be able to accelerate faster and have financial inclusion so that companies can reach billions of people that they were not able to reach previously.
Yes, 100%. And which is why, today's conversation is going to be really timely because we are going to hear from someone who is leading exactly at this intersection, technological innovation with genuine social impact. And I had a really great time with Zoe. She's a senior vice president of data and platform at Tala, and Tala provides like leading financial platform for global majority. And we had some amazing time where we talked about their efforts going on to like modernizing their machine learning frameworks. So why don't we revisit that conversation? Let me share it. Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining another episode of AWS Sheba's Tech Skills. I'm your host, Jigna Gandhi, and I have one more co host with me, Taylor. Do you mind giving a quick introduction before we start?
Yes, absolutely. I'm super excited to be here. I'm the account executive for managing the relationship with Tala, and I'm super excited to have Zoe on today's episode. They have 70% women in leadership at Tala, and I'm really excited about their mission as well, which is to unlock the economic potential of the global majority. So, super excited to be here and to get into this episode.
Yep, sure thing. And as you said, we have amazing guest with us. So she's an SVP of Data and Platform at Tala. Thank you so much for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? How you started your career journey and what led you to Tala?
Of course, yeah. So I've been at Tala. I'll be 4 years in January, which is hard to believe. So I lead the data and platform organization. And what that consists of from the data side is machine learning engineering, including causal inference data scientists, also analytics engineering, data engineering, and a team we call feature flow, which is a critical component of what I'm going to be talking about today. And then on the platform side, that is the back-end engineering that essentially drives the Tala product. In terms of my journey, this is one of those cases I think you can connect the dots looking backwards. Ostensibly, my graduate work was really on using algorithms to detect evolutionary signal in how the animals and bacteria co-evolve. I went on to do, a postdoc and started an industry in 2006. I would say in the last approximately almost 15 years now, I've been increasingly focused on the intersection of data analytics and data science, which has been incredibly rewarding. Tala is the third company I've been at where we've recently essentially created the equivalent of a data organization. And what I mean by that is taking distributed data teams and creating a centralized data organization. And really what has been rewarding for me is seeing how that intersection of the different disciplines within data is really an unlock, because I think in my mind, anything that's really truly going to have a big impact, in particular for customers, requires that cross-functional collaboration. So the reason I joined Tala was really about the mission. I think in the various roles I've had previously, there has been an aspect of a mission element, but nothing quite as direct and impactful as what I've experienced at Tala. And so what we're doing is essentially developing financial solutions for the global majority. And by that, what I mean is the traditionally underserved, unbanked population that really makes up the bulk of the human population. And the kind of the piece that's so exciting for me as a data leader is we're using non-traditional data to underwrite into decision, which is a key thing that I'm going to be talking about today, is more of the mechanics of our decisioning and how we've improved that. The long story short, we're providing microfinancing unsecured loans using non-traditional data and scaling. And it's been really rewarding to see that we can do this as a business in a for-profit manner, so we can continue to expand our reach. And the way we frame it is control, access, and choice for our customers.
Amazing. So with that, I would love to dive into your day-to-day and what that looks like as the SVP of Data and Platform.
That is a great question. I would say every day is different, and that makes it really fun and energizing for me. I think the key thread that I would kind of draw to is what my day-to-day looked like in 2022 is really different now. And a lot of that is because of the foundational investments we've made, not just in machine learning, but data infrastructure and software engineering best practices. And so we're 2025, it's been really exciting for me as we think about launching net new products, specifically in the lending space, as we are expanding into new markets, and really how this connective tissue between data and platform is an unlock for that.
Absolutely. So we recently heard about Tala's new era of agile machine learning model delivery.
Yes.
What led to this change? And I guess a little bit more on that is what were the biggest pain points when implementing?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think it starts with the pain points. And so one of the challenges when I first started is the velocity for releasing new models was on the order of magnitude of quarters. And so really took a step back with the team to understand, like, where are the sources of these bottlenecks? What are the barriers to velocity? And then working to invest in those. And I think one of the prongs was really the infrastructure that I'll speak to more later in the session in more detail. I think another piece was reusability. And so as we were building new machine learning features, even within the same market, every time we built a new model, we were starting from scratch. And so you'll hear me reference Tala Feature Store. And what that is a globally configurable, reusable set of features. So as a data scientist is looking to do a new model or retrain a model, regardless of market, we have those validated features ready to essentially plug and play. And then also just, thinking through kind of like the broader package of what we were shipping. And one of the challenges we had in 2022 was just fragility in the system. And so as much as we could speed up model deployment, we had some challenges when we went into production and put effort around mitigating that.
That's really amazing. For some of the techies between us, can you walk us through, how a typical ML model lifecycle looked like, before and obviously after the improvements that you have made?
Oh, absolutely. I would say in the before state, I just referenced to some extent there wasn't a reusability or scalability, but to get into the specifics of what that looked like, an individual data scientist, as they're working on a specific model, would have their own full EC2 instance, build a model there, deploy to SageMaker. And to be clear, SageMaker was a great tool, but what we recognized is we needed a better pattern of how we were using SageMaker in the AWS environment. I think one of the other challenges that we had with that approach was there's a real cost to that. If a data scientist had deployed a model, they needed to like manually remember to like turn off that EC2 instance before they went on to the next model. And so that just created some overhead for us. And what we're doing now is moving from an individual provisioned EC2 instance to using a managed version of Metaflow through a company called Outer Bounds. And that schedules and triggers jobs. It is containerized within K8, and we're only paying for what we use. And we're also able to, like, for what we are using, we're moving much more quickly than we previously had been. And then essentially we can have an additional Metaflow job that will take the models from Metaflow and then deploy them in SageMaker. So we just have a much more robust pipeline. And then again, Tala Feature Store, or TFS, as I mentioned, there's a much quicker window for debugging and deployment. And so moving from like days, potentially weeks, to less than an hour.
You mentioned about containerization. How did that, some of those DevOps practices shift the culture and obviously the productivity of your team?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I am glad you flagged it as a culture shift, because it was. It was both how do we more closely partner with DevOps and employ CI/CD practices, as well as how we really partnered with our SDET team for how we really improved our end-to-end testing. And I would say on CI/CD, that really helped us find bugs sooner. Which was a huge win. And in particular, when we think about building new ML features with new data sources. So that was a big unlock for us. And what that means, like in practice, is as we have bugs, we're triggering those from GitHub Actions to flag them on Metaflow. And so the data scientist is very much aware real time is if something breaks, and they're able to do a PR to go ahead and address that. One of the other things we've done, and it's been a continuous evolution, is working on refactoring TFS as we identify pain points of how do we alleviate those. And then all the execution now is containerized. So both for the Metaflow trainers as well as for TFS, which improves our stability significantly. And then we've also set up containers for individual data scientists for their own model development.
Awesome. So one of the standout elements mentioned is the transformation is how closely the ML engineers, data scientists, and infrastructure teams collaborated. What practices or structures helped facilitate that collaboration across teams?
I mean, I think it for me was just starting from kind of where I opened with just the value of the cross-functional collaboration and leveraging the different, SMEs for us to create a more robust product, in this case being a new model or a retrained model. And so how that works in practice is we have function-based ceremonies between the machine learning engineers as well as the data scientists. We also look for opportunities essentially to kind of blur the lines where machine learning engineers can also build models. So they're essentially dog fooding their own feature store. We also have been explicit in bringing in data scientists that have some eng domain experience. And this really, I think, deepens that connective tissue between the disciplines. And it's really been successful. And I think the other piece that we've done in the last year is we recognized we had an opportunity to create more capacity for machine learning engineers to invest in research things around AI. And that's where we stood up a feature flow team, which is essentially Python back engineers, which is a discipline we've historically not hired for.
Awesome. Appreciate that. So how did you ensure that the platform was flexible enough for the experimentation, but also mature enough for production grade ML delivery?
I love that question because that was something super important to me. I think one of the other highlights of what this incredible data science team has done in the last couple of years is really formalizing our experimentation practice. It was not terribly coordinated previously. And so we, as we built out a causal inference discipline, really leaned into, in particular, in partnering with the business of how we do experimental design. And a key part of this is we have internally what we call assignment service, which is actually owned by the backend engineers in the platform part of the data and platform organization. And so it's very simple, very configurable. I think the other piece is we can also do randomization in batch and or in real time. And depending on the use case, that makes a pretty sizable difference in terms of the success of the test. I think the other piece that's been really key as we think about experimentation best practices is through this assignment service, we can manage for latency. And so what we don't want to do is be running treatments and controls that have different latency that then obfuscates the interpretation of the test results. And so this has also been, I think, a key success for us is to explicitly control for that.
Since you talked about success, what are some of the measurable impacts like this change has given as a benefit to you, like model deployment speed, performance, or any of the business outcomes?
Absolutely. I mean, I think this is the real headline here because ultimately we can have all the technology we want, but if we're not delivering value to our customers, what's the point? And I think the thing I really appreciate with the leadership in my organization is being very purpose-driven and use case-driven in terms of how we think about, in particular, new technologies. And so just to give you some numbers, we essentially have moved from doing a model retrain in, say, 3+ months to almost real time, like a couple of days, and then we can deploy. And this is really critical for us is we're observing shifts in customer behavior. Potentially we've changed our approval rate. Another example of where we'd want to retrain quite rapidly is if we've deployed a new product configuration. And so this has really enabled us, I think, to be much more agile, literally and figuratively, in how we are, using the most performant model at a given point in time. I think one of the other things that's really interesting for us working in developing markets is there can be macro trends. There can be new competition, there could be new regulation. And so for us to be responsive to that, I think is really critical to the business. And so, just kind of in summary, we doubled the velocity with the investments we made in 2023 and 2024. And now looking at 2024 to 2025, we've 2x'd it again.
That's really impressive. Has this shift also, changed how Tala delivers, financial services or improve credit access for its users?
Absolutely. I think in like a really pragmatic sense, it's the speed to decision. So just to take a step back, our customers are using the Tala app. Typically they're in a moment where like I have a tuition bill coming through or an unexpected medical bill that I hadn't planned for or something else. And so one of the primary value propositions of Tala is we can give you a decision in seconds. And so we've really been pursuing with urgency our ability to get down to sub 2-second decisioning. I think the other piece that this has unlocked is really expanding the suite of the types of models that we can deploy. And when I was referencing causal inference previously, the unlock there is moving from traditional models that deliver a credit score to personalization. And the evidence we've seen from a personalization approach where we're optimizing at a user level instead of a credit score decile level is really impressive.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. So what were some of the key lessons learned, maybe both technical and organizational, during this infrastructure overhaul?
I love that question too. Maybe take a step back. I think one of the benefits of really working through strong SLAs and data contracts is that almost as a mechanism to ensure we're able to deliver what we committed to on time. And it has really helped us scale as well as improve just the overall velocity. I think one of the other design principles, and this was also a culture shift, is indexing on simplicity. And so start from a place of like, what is the simplest possible solution and work from there. I think we'd had some challenges, and I've seen this in other companies too, is you can kind of rabbit hole from a machine learning perspective into a more complex bespoke solution, which could potentially lead to the same outcome, but not necessarily scale. And then I think we have a phenomenal program team at Tala, and so they really help us reinforce operational excellence, cross-functional planning, what is the right sequencing, where do we have dependencies, where do we have risks. And then related to that, and this has been one of my own personal passion projects while I've been at Tala, is continuing to up-level our software development lifecycle. And I think the specific thing that we've really indexed on is what does it mean to be data first? I think historically our SDLC, for very good reason, was customer first and really about the UX, which is still super important. But specifically, as we're thinking about new partnerships, new data sources, et cetera, how do we ensure that our data is not just data first, but machine learning ready?
Awesome. Speaking of upskill, so how did you upskill and empower your team during the transformation, especially those less familiar with engineering heavy tools like Metaflow?
Yeah. I mean, I think with anything from a change management perspective, it was really having a clear vision of the destination state and the why and the value that this investment would unlock, and really building that energy on if we take this path, this is what we get to do, and this is what we get to show the business, and this is the way we get to improve the value of our customers' lives, really. And I think the beauty of Metaflow, and to be clear, we looked at a couple different solutions and we were really excited about Metaflow just because it is designed for data scientists in particular. And it essentially kind of removes the cognitive load for having to think about containerization or other types of engineering concerns. It's essentially there ready to go for you. And then I think the other thing, honestly, with Metaflow, in terms of the compatibility with Jupyter Notebooks, it's also enabled us to provide access to like our business partners if they want to do an EDA or something like that. And so it's broadly much more scalable than where we had been. And then I think the other key benefit with Metaflow is that's really a great place for our machine learning engineers to plug into. And so really thinking about things like feature extraction logic, monitoring, managing latency, and those types of like more kind of fundamental requirements.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's really impressive. I'm also interested to learn a little bit about the future.
Yeah.
Like what's next now? Like are there any areas that you are trying to prepare, such as real-time inference, feature stores, personalization, right? Something like that. Like what's next for you?
It's really all about personalization. Like, as I mentioned, we've really seen an unlock there, and it's provided unexpected insights into consumer behavior. And so just even from like an economics perspective, it's really been changing some of our assumptions. And what I really like about these unexpected results is it shows us the power of data, and in particular, data at scale. So from a personalization perspective, we've been framing this and branding it as Tala Insight, which is our patent pending decision model that's using causal methods to essentially predict what are the circumstances and behaviors that will enable every customer to succeed. And so, for example, if we're doing a personalized repeat loan limit, this is you leveraging the behaviors of previous loans and optimizing for the customer as an individual instead of grouping them with other customers that may have different behavior patterns. And I think this move from like at a point in time decisioning to more of a dynamic real-time understanding of customers and meeting them where they're at has really been an unlock. So the AI infrastructure and architecture that we've invested in basically takes the real-time decisioning capability that we have over essentially a decade's worth of proprietary data. And that's just been an incredibly powerful combination to enable us to accelerate our investment in personalization.
That's really amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know we are almost at the time, but I do have one question before I let you go. We would love to know, like, is there any advice, that you would like to give for the women who are, aspiring to be in the leadership or the technical roles such as data or machine learning? Can you talk to us a little bit about like what has helped you to thrive in this space, and is there anything that you wish that you had known earlier? And lastly, any advice for our audience who
Yeah,
would like to
uh,
do similar things?
of course, of course. Um, I think my kind of like my top level advice is follow your passion and be curious and take risks. And by that, I mean new experiences, new business domains, new technology disciplines. Because I think, at least for me, it was, being in a lot of different types of roles early in my career that helped me triangulate on like where I get my energy, and where you're going to be most successful is where you're most passionate. And so there's not like a recipe, which, I think sometimes when I'm meeting with people early in career, they're like, oh, should I do X, Y, and Z? And I'm like, you should do what you want to do and what excites you. And if you're doing something that doesn't excite you, that's like the moment to say, okay, how do I pivot from here? I think one of the things that took me a while to learn, honestly, um, was not putting so much pressure on myself. Expertise, I think, is kind of a myth, in particular when technology is changing so quickly. And so I certainly was in roles earlier in my career where I didn't exactly have the expertise or the domain experience. And what it took me a while to realize, but I really think it holds true, is the principles and like the common sense practices prevail. And being able to essentially understand what is the expertise I need to solve this problem and tapping on those people, and including delegating to your own team, is a huge unlock. Like, you don't have to have all the answers. And I think that's really huge. I mean, one of the things that we have been doing over the last few months at Tala is updating our cultural values. And one of the ones that really, really deeply resonates with me is you can't know everything, but you can learn anything. And I love that.
Totally, I am 100% in agreement with you on that. That I actually that has helped me as well as I
Yeah,
started my career. So that's a really good advice. Thank you so much for sharing that,
of course.
and thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you for having me. This was great. It's really fun to be able to talk about the technology we've been developing.
Awesome. No, no, our pleasure. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was such an inspiring conversation. What did you think, Jigna?
Yes, totally. I think there were few things that really stood out for me when I had met her. The remarkable transformation of Tala's machine learning infrastructure, which I would say not only accelerate the model deployment because that's obviously because that helped them from months to days, but fundamentally changed how they serve their customers. I would say that with strategic investments in like data infrastructure and cross-functional collaboration, and obviously the shift towards like containerization, DevOps practices, we have really created a more agile and efficient system that directly impacts their ability to provide financial services to the underserved. And perhaps I would say the most important thing is like how they are highlighting the technical innovation, which is when paired with like clear mission and strong organization culture, can definitely create such meaningful impact at scale. What do you think?
No, you covered a lot of great things. So what really stood out to me was Zoe's emphasis on shifting the culture from individual expertise to more a collaborative problem-solving environment. And what that created was a safe environment for everyone to innovate faster. And then she also talked about the simplicity in design. Instead of complicating the design and taking longer time, doing a simple design and executing faster was very important to her. And I love their motto of you can't know everything, but you can learn anything. So that kind of empowers the people to again learn new things and support each other. Yeah, so that those were the things that stood out to me.
Yep, yep. I totally agree with that 100%. To our audience, if you want to learn more about Tala, check out their website, check out the products that they offer. They recently expanded into Latin America as well, which was powered by their proprietary software Tala in the box. So do check out their announcement as well. And with that, I know we are almost coming into the time. We are actually coming to the end of our show. But I would do like to highlight that feel free to connect to any of us or directly on the LinkedIn. Feel free to connect Zoe on LinkedIn, Seka, Taylor, that were part of this show. Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us. Anything you want to add, Sega? Any last comment?
Yeah, yeah, of course. We would love to hear from you. Share your experience about this episode. Give us feedback, what you want to see more of. This is going to help us to bring more amazing women to the show.
Totally, totally. And we also have some exciting episodes coming up. We have reinvent coming up, obviously. So
Yeah.
there are gonna be huge AI announcements. So please stay tuned for that. We are gonna be bringing more leaders who are gonna be talking about building in AI, we are bringing in cloud security, and so much more. So that is it.
Yeah. Yeah. And lastly, I want to say thank you to Zoe once again for taking the time to chat with us, letting us peek into your world and get sharing your experience. And thank you for everyone that has attended this presentation and for spending the time with us. And with that, until next time, keep learning, keep building, and keep inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you so much.